This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Baby, what a win this one is! The most patient fans in the league, right to the dog pound, up and in he goes! The rookie out of Georgia goes right side 40, 45, 50, he stumbles a little bit to the 40, he's to the 30, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5, touchdown!
Greetings, Dog Pound Nation. Welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast, now part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network, with myself, John Cahill, and my good friend and fellow Irish Browns fan, Neil Dunworth. In today's show, myself and Neil are going to have a quick chat about all the goings on today. Big news in Bury, a new GM appointed, an extra special little video released from Kareem Hunt. And after all that news, we'll have a special guest on today, Mr. Haz Matthews from Hey Haz, and all those amazing Browns videos after all the games last year. So we'll chat to him a bit about that. But first of all, Neil, the white smoke in Berea.
Yep. Plenty of fuel for all of those guys who think that the coaching and GM interviews were all a smokescreen. If that's the white smoke that you mean, you know, there is quite a lot of chatter on Twitter that everyone's saying that this is what Haslam wanted all along, and this is just so devious. And you know, the PR team are whipping up all these things about extensive searches, and little do they think that maybe last year they actually identified the right guys, and then somebody just wiped their arse at the piece of paper and decided to go with somebody else, you know? So, hey, I don't know. I'm delighted with it. I'm happy enough with Andrew Berry. You know, it was really him or no one at this stage, because we weren't going to hire Monty Ossenfort. Well, not that I know of. You know, he the least amount of, I suppose, hype coming into this. But
Yeah, I suppose with Berry, Berry was highly sought after whilst leaving the Browns, and he was
absolutely,
he's moved up pretty quickly in his career. We also have this sort of trifecta of Ivy League guys now, between head coach and strategic manager and general manager. I wonder, do we see a few more of these Ivy League tight ends coming into the league now, or coming into the Browns?
Maybe so. Set the Valve chose. I suppose he was hoping that he might stay around a bit longer. We got Stephen Carlson. You never know who else might come on down. But no,
Tretter's an Ivy League man as well, isn't he?
He is.
Cornell, I think Tretter's Cornell. I think, yeah.
Yeah, he's Cornell as well. Yeah. But no, look, Andrew Berry has, like, you can say what you want. He's now a football guy and stuff, but he's been a pro scout for the Colts. Scouting assistant for the Colts, and he was Brown's vice president of player personnel as well, and that was his role from 2016 to 18, as we know. Obviously he played football at Harvard, and then I've heard people laugh at that to say, what difference does that make? But you know, just because he didn't play in the NFL doesn't really mean that he doesn't know about football. You know, if you're intelligent, you can figure out things. If you were intelligent about the game of football, you can figure out the game of football. You don't have to have played at the highest level to be the best football coach, or best football evaluator, should I say. So, yeah, find it a bit strange, the negativity around him.
Yeah, interesting piece from Charles Robinson here on Twitter as well, basically saying that that Berry was anointed from the beginning, and you know, Patton withdrawing didn't really affect the result of the race, and that it was a unanimous decision across the board. You'd obviously expect that to be put out there. But also an interesting thing he's after putting out there is that his contract is going to be tied to Stefanski, as in they both have 5-year contracts, and they looks to me like they're, you know, someone slipped a ring on a finger today, and they're walking down the aisle, and they'll walk to the divorce courts at the same time, I would imagine. So like it'll be a one out, all out next time around, I'd imagine. And isn't it terrible that that's the way we think, Neil? Isn't it terrible the way that that's the way we're looking at the next cycle already?
Yeah, and I saw that that Reflog had up today, and I did have a little chuckle at it. He said that Berry wowed the Browns because he already had a list of his next head coach already. Is a list of head coaches already in his back pocket. And I did have to laugh, because that's the way I suppose, being a Browns fan, you're almost kind of pre-wired to kind of think that way, that there's going to be a way to screw it up. But some of the reasons to be excited, I think, are the fact that, you know, you've got two young guys that are tied together, as you say, for 5 years. Barry is obviously the youngest GM at 32. You don't become the youngest GM at 32 just because somebody wants to make a splash. You're the youngest GM there for a reason. I tend to listen to intelligent people, and Bill Polian is an intelligent person. Howie Roseman is an intelligent person. They all see really good things from Andrew Berry. Howie Roseman said that he was one of the most versatile young talents in the whole league when he actually plucked him from the Browns last year, and brought him there as the vice president of football operations, and he's going to come back. So he was vice president of player personnel. He got a promotion when he went to the Eagles. The Eagles aren't exactly a badly run franchise. They know how to draft, they know how to get, they know how to cap manage and so on. So hey, if you were going to learn under anyone, probably Howie Roseman is the person that you want to learn under. And he got a promotion. He got a promotion to the vice president of football operations, and that's, you know, that in itself is kind of telling as well. He went in there, if I'm not mistaken, think he went in there and he worked with Joe Douglas, and then essentially assumed an awful lot of responsibilities as well that Joe Douglas had when Joe Douglas moved on to the Jets. I could be slightly wrong on that, but I think he went in there kind of side by side with Joe Douglas, and when Joe Douglas moved on, Andrew Berry assumed all his assignments as well. But he's intelligent. He's a minority hiring. I can guarantee you we won't hear anything from the national media about that. It'll just be kind of that he is a nerd and that he was part of 1 in 31. And I've got some views as well on the 1 in 31 thing that we get to later on as well when we chat a small bit about Barry. But there are some, as I say, it's exciting. You have the two of them together for 5 years. Everybody is saying that, look, this is, you know, maybe it's either a match made in heaven or a match made in hell. And I don't think it's a match made in hell for sure. But if it is a match made in heaven, and you can have 30 years of sustained success with your GM and your head coach, are you going to take that over maybe taking somebody who's in his late 50s or mid 60s as a GM, and maybe late 50s or something like that, and pair him up with a 37-year-old head coach, and their ideals aren't the same? I prefer to give this a go myself.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board. I'm on board with the hire in broad principles. I suppose when the names came out first, and I heard that Ed Dodds was a candidate, I didn't understand at the time that he was linked to Salah really, but I would have really thought he was my top choice as a GM candidate based on what he's done and the players they've got in Indianapolis. But I'm quite happy with it, and like, you know, the buzzword this year, alignment. I can see how all those guys working together in an office, and everyone, you know, pulling together into one direction. That's really what we're looking for. Can't ask for any more. And as I said, Neil, now it's like, you know, onto the draft. Number 10 pick, can't miss. It's a can't miss pick in this draft. Personally, like, we'll get a tackle, we could get a D lineman, could get a wide receiver. Not advocating that we take a wide receiver that early, but if they're going best player available, the best player available is probably going to be a wide receiver at that pick, the way things are going with tackles and quarterbacks going very early in the draft, I'd imagine. But the interesting news today, we just heard that Philip Rivers on his way out from the Chargers. That's going to be another quarterback pick there, I'd say, in the top 10 if they're going to move up, or they don't have to move up, but to be a quarterback going in there. So the more quarterbacks that go in the top 10, the better. So I'm sure Barry is licking his chops to get into that role, and I would foresee not a whole lot of roster upheaval. I'd imagine he's going to get his guys in and get a few guys out. Obviously, that's going to happen, but I don't see him coming in with wholesale changes and wielding an axe in ways that has been done in the past. That, like, the squad doesn't really need that, like, you know. So yeah, interesting times ahead. Other news today, Neil, Kareem Hunt video.
But just before we
Yep.
go in there, you mentioned the draft, and I want to address something with Andrew Berry, because you see he gets tired with the 1 in 31 brush all the time, and it's like, well, he was part of the front office that scouted these guys. A tiny little bit of research will show you that he was part of the pro personnel side of things, i.e., and ipso facto, he brought in players from the pro side of the ball, side of things, like the JC Tretters. He brought in Demario Davis. brought in Jason McCourty when he came in. He brought in these players, these pro players who came in and played relatively well for the Browns, even though we had some poor seasons. He brought in those players. Also, another piece to think of here as well. He was part of the pro side. Okay, yes, he was personnel and stuff like that, but it was pro personnel. Bobby Vega was the head of the collegiate scouting for 13 years with the Browns. He was there under Farmer. He was there under countless other GMs. Don't really want to go down through it, but he was there. We didn't have the best drafts under Farmer. We didn't have the best drafts. Or we didn't have as complete a draft, should I say, in 15, 16, and 17. We got some very good players, but we obviously didn't hit on every player that we drafted. Now, Bobby Vega was the collegiate scout there. If I'm trusting my collegiate scouts to get me players in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, the Sean Colemans, even the Corey Colemans, the Jordan Paytons, the Ricardo Lewises, the Scooby Wrights, I'm trusting my scouts that are out there all day, every day scouting players to bring me that information. I'm trusting them. They're no longer in the building. He's been replaced. Bobby Vega has been replaced with Stephen Mallon, who is the old Saints director of scouting, so director of collegiate scouting. So this whole Barry drafted this handful of whatever wasters that people tend to call those 2 drafts. And yes, they weren't perfect. No one is saying they are. Darcy's weren't perfect either. And yes, Darcy did clean house with all these scouts, but they're no longer in the building. And if I'm going down to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round of any draft where a lot of these picks didn't hit, then I'm looking to my scouting department and saying, you guys didn't do your job correctly. Or I'm looking to my tight ends coach and say, you slammed the table for this guy. Or I'm looking at my defensive line coach and saying, you were the one who wanted Caleb Brantley, and he had all this stuff over potentially punching a woman in a restaurant. You wanted him, and he didn't pan out. So to tar Andrew Barry with that kind of stuff, I think is very, very unfair. He's got a whole new scouting department set up there for him. Yes, and Dorsey did do that, and he did do some good things. So I am very much on the pump the brakes on that. Well, we just hired a guy who went 131 because all things aren't equal in that statement.
Indeed. And in the rest of today's news, Neil, we were just speaking previously, we touched on their Kareem Hunt video surfaced from TMZ. I don't know how these guys get these videos. I've no idea how, they're a scourge on humanity. But anyhow, video out there. Myself and yourself just sat down and watched it before coming on. I have read a lot on Twitter and seen a lot today about it. What I'm reading on Twitter and what I'm seeing on the video, Neil, to me, don't match up. A lot of vitriol, a lot of people, with the knives out for Kareem Hunt. What I saw in that video was a scared young man, maybe slightly troubled. Someone needs to put an arm around that chap and get him sorted. If he is, it wasn't clear to me about him admitting that he'd failed a drugs test on that video. Now, maybe someone else has a clearer version of what, I don't know. But if he is subjected to the same test that every other player is, and he fails, he has to live and die by the same rules as everyone else. But at the moment, anyone who's looking for the knives out to get this guy out the door, we brought him in the door knowing his past, knowing his history, and knowing what has gone on. And I would imagine that this is a tiny drop in the ocean as to what has gone on in the past. So is it time to cut bait? Is it time to, we've been down this road before, Neil, and I have a sneaky feeling that this organization won't be going down this road in the future. But this, I'm not saying he's going to be cut, but I'm saying it could be the last time that we get a character concerned player in the door on the cheap. I don't believe that we're going to be dealing with these issues going forward unless there's a market inefficiency spotted by analytics. I don't know, Neil. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like from what you read, and I suppose the contextualized, taking things out of context, should I say, some statements that were made on the video. Yeah, I think he knew that there was weed in the bag. Was it his weed? I don't know. Whatever the situation was there. Big thing here is just take a piss test. If you're clean, you're clean. If you're not, you're not. And I know you can't do that with the CBA, but if you want to save your career, if you want to save your NFL career, he talks about you should be suiting up for a Super Bowl. If he really wants to make his bag of cash, because he's not going to if this stuff doesn't go away. If he really wants them to take his bag of cash, he just goes and he gets himself drug tested. Here in Ireland, we're an amateur sport. There was an allegation made against a prominent member of the GA community here, the prominent hurler, and there was a video on social media of what looked to be someone handing him a small white package. What it turned out was it was coins, change wrapped up in a receipt. It was not believed, and he went himself voluntarily to I don't know where he went to, but he went to a local hospital, took a drug test, and posted the drug test results on social media to clear his name. That's all Kareem Hunt has to do. If he really, really wants to do this, if he really wants to be part of this, why the hell aren't these guys proactive? Why aren't they proactive in doing it? Just take your drug test, post it up. If you're innocent, you're innocent. If you're not, you're not. It's the easiest way to slam this stuff, smack bang the head and say, yeah, there was weed in my bag. It wasn't mine. It was my brother's. Yeah, there was an open thing of vodka there. I wasn't drinking. That's fine. I'm just a victim of the situation I'm in. I'm driving my mother's car. I've taken my mother's car now. Granted, my mother doesn't do weed, nor does she have open bottles of vodka in the back of the car. But I've taken my mother's car. But I've never cleaned it out before. I've taken it. I've never gone and looked down the back seats or looked in the boot or whatever to see if there's anything in there, or if there's anything like. I've never once cleaned out my mother's car before I've done anything. But then again, why would I? If he's in that situation and he's if he's taking his mother's car, last thing he's going to be doing is looking around it to see if there's anything in there that shouldn't be there. Look, indeed, it's an everyday kind of occurrence. He goes, he gets himself, he's proactive, take his drug test. If it's positive, it's positive. If it's negative, it's negative, But if it is negative and if it comes back that he wasn't, that he is drug free, then he posts that all over social media and this thing goes away.
Indeed.
That's simple.
Last night, Neil, I had the pleasure of Mr. Haz Matthews of Hey Haz fame, DJ with Radio 1 in Cleveland. He's on at the weekends from, I think it's 10 to 3 in the afternoons. At the weekends, he has a hip-hop show, throwback hip-hop show on there, and also famous for his mashup videos, these rap videos that he did after the games last year. Very, very popular last year, and I was always waiting with bated breath to have them on, and I've been looking forward to speaking to Haz for a while now. We've been trying to schedule it up. So last night I got a chance to sit down and have a chat with him. So we'll take a quick break and we'll have a word from our friends in Big Heads Media, and when we return, I'll have my little chat that I had with Haz Matthews from last night. So bearing in mind, just with this interview, it was taped just as the news from Kobe was breaking, so we do reference that in there, and that there will be no reference to GM hires or anything like that because it was recorded last night. But please enjoy after the break. We'll see you with Haz Matthews.
Want to know what life is really like after the game's all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast. Haz Matthews. Haz, how are you today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Been looking forward to having you on. I've been enjoying your content for this season. You've been coming out with the videos after some of the tough wins and tough losses we've had this season. How was the season as a whole for you as a Browns fan this
year? Very disappointing, to say the least. I mean, being a Browns fan for as long as I've been, and then you finally think, like we've always we think it's going to be this year. We think it's going to be this year. But it was just the talent that was on the roster this year to not win was just it was insanely crazy. I'm like, because I'm a diehard super fan, and I've argued for many years of my life over these Browns, and I just wish they'd just have my back one time. And the media was all talking about, yeah, they picking the Browns as favorites to contend for the Super Bowl. So, you're drinking all that Kool-Aid, and then they go out and still suck. You're like, what is going on?
At what point did you buy in, Haz? At what point last year? Because I distinctly remember one night I was sitting at home here on my sofa. It was 11. It was around 11:30 at night, and the news of the Odell Beckham signing broke. And I remember I actually stayed up till about 4:00 that morning, listening to all the media and listening to everyone giving their takes. And that night, I think I decided we were going to the playoffs. And I wasn't budged off of that until the San Francisco game this year, when my world was a little bit shook after that disastrous performance in San Francisco. What sort of trajectory did your season take? Like, were you all in after the Beckham trade?
No, to be honest, I was a little skeptical about the Beckham trade. I wasn't necessarily all the way on board with it. I mean, I'm not, of course, a guy of his caliber of talent, who wouldn't want to have that on the team? But I was just wondering, like, did we need it? You know what I mean? And in hindsight, you could say that after the season that he had, but no, I seriously had my doubts about it, only because I felt like it wasn't all the way necessary because of how the team was playing at the end of the previous season. So I thought we were already on our way, maybe one of these younger guys could emerge. So I thought that, but I couldn't imagine that it would have, gone the route that it actually did. I thought, hey, maybe it will work out. So, you only can hope for the best when you have a receiver that good on your team. But
would you think
leave it to the Browns to
exactly
to have a guy like Odell Beckham not shine? So that was weird.
Were your reservations around Odell based on the amount of money that was being spent in the wide receiver room that maybe might have been spent elsewhere, or based on the player himself?
Well, I know that I already felt like we had a number one receiver in Jarvis Landry, and the way he took command of the receiver room, he was already like the leader in the locker room. So you bring in his boy, and then I just didn't know it wasn't really about the money. It was more about the chemistry within the locker room. And, you had other receivers in the locker room who thought they would be number two or whatever. I'm sure that didn't sit well, which obviously something didn't work out right for Hollywood Higgins, because we barely saw him this season, and you were hearing some stories about, might be something going on there. And, I liked the development of Hollywood Higgins. So I felt like he would have been a good, I would have wanted to see where that would have went. But now that he's here, we have to make it work. He's here now, so we're gonna have to make it work. Now people are talking about trading him because of the, the stuff that happened after the LSU game. It's like, what are we gonna trade him now for? We have him. Not gonna give him up for nothing.
Yeah, like, we've guys on the roster who've assaulted people and done all sorts of things, and like I doubt we're going to cut or trade. Well, not cut, but trade Odell for being drunk down in Louisiana at a football.
He definitely was inebriated that day. I was like, hey, y'all gonna have to give Odell a drunk pass, okay? He up here slapping up security guards on the ass, and he's drunk. You can see it in his face. I mean, like, I'm speculating. I didn't get any kind of reports. He hasn't taken a breathalyzer. I don't know if he's done anything to prove that he had been drinking, but I've been around drunks my whole life. I've got plenty of them in my family, and I know what it's like, and I know that look. And I could tell that he had a little too much celebratory beverages that evening.
Did you see
took over
the shoulder charge on Karl Malone? I thought that was particularly giveaway that he had a few pints in him, where he tried to shoulder Karl Malone. And I think Karl Malone told him to go put stones in his pockets because he was a foot too short and a few stone too light.
He was doing the most, man. He was doing
Yeah.
it wrong. But now people's like, we should get rid of him. Like, are you crazy? We got to see if a better coach can get him the ball. That's what
Yeah.
we gotta see now.
And that's where we're just coming on to now, this part of the season. Kevin Stefanski's after coming in. Was Kevin Stefanski someone you were familiar with, or someone that you would have been high on your list to come in as head coach?
No. I mean, I heard about him from last year. I didn't really know too much about him, So, I mean, as a Cleveland fan, you just learn to just kind of try to get to know the people as they bring them in. It's been such a revolving door of coaches. But all I can say for Kevin Stefanski is I like what I've heard so far. And this is not me as a diehard Brown fan just trying to find a reason to buy in. But I've listened to him in all of his interviews and press conferences and stuff like that. So he seems like a well-demeanored person, and we'll see if he'll come and gain the respect of the players when it's time. You know what I'm saying? And if they'll follow him, that's all we can hope for, because the team is talented enough to win. It's just now they have to respect whoever the coach is and buy into what he's selling.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
He's not Ryan, which I like. He didn't come out saying, I'm promising you this. So and they hit him with some trick questions. I've heard some interviews over here where he's been hit with some questions that, just if he didn't have calculated thoughts, he could have been seen as throwing team players up under the bus, because of course he was asked about the Odell situation, and he's handled the press good thus far, but he has to understand they are not going to stop. They're going to continue to ask dumb questions and try to get him caught up or get him, catch him out of his, get him out of his element. He did seem to get a little testy after the Cleveland Sports Awards, which I attended on last Thursday, I believe it was. It was Wednesday or Thursday.
Who was guilty of asking the stupid question there, Haz?
Huh?
Who was guilty of asking the stupid question there?
Man, it could be any of them. And so I'm not going to point out anyone in particular. You know what I'm saying? But they will ask the questions that they know are, questions that would possibly irritate them if they were in the same position. When you're asking a question that's going to get on somebody's nerves.
Yeah, and
he did seem to get a little testy. I don't know. I sense just the first time I've seen him in a press conference seemed like he might have been slightly bothered by a question that was asked him, but he still didn't, slip up in his answer. So.
Yeah, Mary Kay went in 2-footed with her first question, I think, in the first press conference, basically saying what makes you any different, like I think was the general tone of the question, Right. So, but it's something I think all Browns coaches are going to have to get used to, the fact that there's a certain perspective in Cleveland media. I find it fascinating from this side of the pond, like what they feel. Some of the beat reporters, what they feel they can ask, and what the standard of questions that are asked in press conference sometimes, I really just don't understand. But anyhow, that's a whole other podcast and a whole other day's work, Has.
Right.
Tell me this, Has, for the coming season, do you attend many games? Do you go to many games?
Yeah, I'm a season ticket holder, so I go to all the home games. I've been going to all the home games. I sold a few tickets this year off of that good old hope.
Yeah,
those tickets were a hot item this year. So, but I did. So I went to a few games. I sold some tickets this past season. But to be honest, I prefer to watch it on television. After I've been there for going a season ticket holder now for about 5 years. So I've gone through I was out there for 0-16, 1-15. And though I want to see them win, I think I would enjoy seeing them win better from TV, so I can see everything, because when you're out there, it's cool to be there, but I still want to hear the commentary. I still like seeing the replays and hearing what, how the game is being broke down by the by the guys that are covering the game. So I enjoy that aspect of it. I sit in my cave and watch it on that TV. Right, it's watching on that TV right over there. So I enjoy that too. So going to the game is nice, though. I like going to games. So.
Yeah, as someone who's never been, it's a life's ambition. I'm hoping in the next year or two to get over for a game. My co-host Neil has been over this year. He went over to the Bills game, I believe. He had a good blast. Check, yeah. What does your game day look like? Are you in there at 6 a.m. Tailgating, or do you just rock up for the game?
No, I mean, because I don't set up a tailgate myself. And plus, I work for a radio station out here, and they've had watch parties. And I know one of the weeks I had to be there for that. And so I know different people that tailgate in different areas of downtown Cleveland before the game. So we'll walk through like the main parking lots that have the big tailgates going on. Like the Muni lot is a real popular place where people it's packed out with people just tailgating, and they got all of the Browns big school bus decked out like Browns, all kinds of crazy, Browns fanatics tailgating. So you can just walk through there, and you're liable to run into somebody, or even if not, somebody's like, hey, yeah, come over here, have a drink. So you just just walk through, and then even when you get up by the stadium, the street that's right there on the outside of the stadium, they have a lot of things going on there too. They have a stage and a band performing, and they have bouncy houses for the kids. They let you run a 40-yard dash to see it, how slow you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, food trucks out there. So it's a nice day, until after which, and then you got to walk all the way back to your car after they lost. And you're like, why did I do this to my life? Because it costs. You got to pay money to go down there. You got to park. You got to pay to park. There's the good side, and then there's the ugly side. You know what I'm saying? And I experienced it all because I'm 5 years in going to these games.
And are you born and raised in Cleveland? Haz?
I wasn't born in Cleveland. I was born in Havre de Grace, Maryland. But my father, whose entire family, for the most part, is here in Cleveland. He moved us here when I was a small child, probably around 3. So I grew all the way up here, went to all the, from kindergarten all the way through high school here in Cleveland, Ohio. But then I did move back to Maryland for a time there out of high school. And I was living there for quite some time too. And I just happened to be, it's in the Baltimore area. So I have ties to the city of Baltimore as well. But when the Browns, and I was living there when the Browns moved from Cleveland to become the Baltimore Ravens. So that was weird. But I remained a Browns fan, even though I still lived in Baltimore. And but I have love for the Ravens team, just not their fans. Their fans get on my damn nerves. I don't know if I can curse on this.
Oh, you can say whatever you want, Haz.
They get on my fucking nerves.
Yeah.
Okay, those bastards. No, but a lot of them are my family too. So it's been a constant when it's Ravens Browns for me. My oldest son is a Ravens fan.
Oh, dear Lord.
He was born in Baltimore, though, so I have to give him that. You know,
you were born in Maryland, Haz. So.
But I didn't know any. But before I knew football, I was in Cleveland. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so everything I learned about football, it was watching the Browns. I'm not young. I was back in the days of the fumble, the drive, and all of that. I lived through all of that. So I'm there.
You brought up an interesting point there, Haz, about Ravens fans and the hating the teams and all that. I think it's a really, really interesting thing. I'm supporting the Browns for about 20 years since the expansion team opened up, right? So what's that, 96 was it? Since the Tim Couch draft really 99, sorry, 96 when the team was gone, sorry, yeah, 99. So my natural instinct and my automatic team to hate is the Ravens, right? Because okay. I don't have the sort of pre-Browns franchise Pittsburgh Steelers kind of rivalry stuff. So I don't really have that in my history book. I really only have the fact that those bastards stole our team. So obviously it's the Ravens that I'm going to hate. Like, so I find it very interesting that a lot of fans I interact with on social media, and I think it's generally an older type of, they hate Pittsburgh. And people, I think, my geography in Cleveland isn't great, but I know that there's certain areas in Ohio that are swamped with Steelers fans. You know,
they're all over the place. That's the fan I hate the most, is the Pittsburgh Steeler fan born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. There's plenty of those out here. And I lived away from here for 20 years before I moved back when I got hired with 93.1 WZAK, the radio station here. And I was glad to be back around Browns fans because I was out there by myself almost all of those years and getting into sports arguments with plenty of different people and they didn't have a team. So a lot of the people, you know, before the Browns became the Ravens, there was no team there. And so a lot of my friends and family, they liked a bunch of other teams from the NFL. I knew all kinds of fans, Viking fans. I even knew a Kansas City Chiefs fan back then. So I was the Browns fan. So that's how we all knew each other. We all liked different teams. But then the Ravens nation started to grow. And I was there. I was actually on the radio the night they won the Super Bowl, the first one. And I couldn't be on the radio like, fuck the Ravens, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they won, but I like the Browns, fuck this. No, but so I had to embrace that. So I did. That was an experience in my life where I was in the city that won the Super Bowl and what that was like to experience that. So I don't hate them for that, but their fans, obnoxious.
Yeah, we can all agree on that.
Obnoxious as hell. And they don't, it's like, don't you know that y'all the ones, y'all benefited from us losing the team, just like y'all's team snuck out of here because the Colts left them.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. And then so I thought they would like empathize with Cleveland. But when Cleveland came back into the fold and they started playing against each other, it was like the total opposite. They was talking real greasy. And I was like, oh no, I can't be a part of this. I thought I could have been a part of it because I'm from both places, really. But my heart, as far as football, is in Cleveland. You see this? Look. I got my wall of hats back there. That's all Cleveland, bro. I don't fool with the Baltimore Ravens. I let my son have that. But yes, I'm Cleveland. My whole space is all about these brownies. So
we're cursed in Ireland with Patriots fans. So in Ireland, in Ireland, we seem to have a fan base for a handful of teams. We have a fan base of Patriots fans because obviously they win, they get exposure. We have a fan base of Steelers, Packers, Cowboys. That's about it. It's like the big, you know, kind of international teams, you might say, like, you know, that were successful at any one point in time. And also the Raiders. For some reason, you can go into any sports shop in Ireland and buy a Raiders hat. You know, but I think that's just a fashion statement. It's like the Red Sox. You can buy a Red Sox and a Yankees hat in any sports shop in Ireland. Like, best of luck going to get a Cleveland Indians hat in a sports shop in Ireland. It's not going to happen. And the same for the gear. Like say, there's about in our group and in our backers club, there's probably about 7 or 8 sort of hardcore Browns fans in Ireland. We have a guy from where's he from? He's from Ohio, lives in Galway, but he set up the group there. But we get, during the season, we get like busloads of people from Ohio coming in for the games, and it's great to meet everyone. But there's never any more than like a handful of Browns fans in Ireland at any one time, and it's a bit of a pain, like, because like people actually look at you as a curiosity. There's no real animosity towards Browns fans, like, you know, because it's like, why do you support the Browns?
Right, and that's why it was like the Ravens fans were the first ones to kind of have animosity. A lot of people had jokes though. Yeah, people always had jokes. We were always the team to joke about, and I just want that to change, please. You know, because I'm out here representing. It was more than just the team. It was like you insulting my city where I grew up, the place that I was proud to say I'm from. You calling it a joke. And I just wish, the team, the Cavs won, but then LeBron left and now they suck again. So
Yeah.
like,
Right. So you do a bit of music, you do content creation, you're on the radio, and you do a little bit of everything. Tell us a bit about your work on the radio. I'm a newcomer to Cleveland radio myself. I just got an app this week that allows me to listen to Cleveland radio, and I've been on the Talk Sport radio buzz this week now. But tell me a bit about your work on radio in Cleveland.
well, I work for Radio 1 Cleveland. It's a 4-station cluster. We we run a R&B station, which is the one I work for, a hip hop station, and we have a gospel station and a AM talk station. Now the station I'm on, we play R&B and hip hop, throwback hip hop, not the stuff for the young generation, but the classic, hip hop party songs. We play that, and I'm a DJ because I've been DJing since I was 15 years old, and I have a mix show on that station on Saturday nights from 8 to midnight. It's just me on the turntables for 4 hours going in, just partying. It's called the House Party. And I do the same thing for our station in Columbus, because Radio 1 owns stations, around the country. So in Columbus as well, I do the same. So I do it for 2 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Friday in Columbus. And that station is Magic 95.5. And then on Sundays, like today, I was on from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on our station here in Cleveland, 93.1 WZAK. And it's just a regular format then. So it was just something, I've always been into music. My father had a lot of records. I used to sit around and listen to them all the time and just for hours on end, just playing my father's music. So I've always been into music. And
what music influenced you, Haz? What was your dad's type of music? What was the kind of music that influenced you?
Man, he had all kinds of the old R&B stuff like Stevie Wonder, the OJs, Gladys Knight and the Pips. We had Zapp, Roger Troutman, like all of that that soul stuff. And we had some other, some rock. I was influenced by rock too. When I was in elementary school, I was listening to like Kiss. I don't know why, but I was into like second, third grade listening to Kiss. I used to collect they used to have, like, when they were really popular, the ice cream stand up the street from my house we used to go to. They used to have the Kiss bubblegum cards, and I used to buy the Kiss bubblegum cards and collect them because on the back it was a piece of a puzzle that put together this big picture of Kiss and the Phantom meets the Phantom of the whatever. There's some movie they came out with, and I collected like all of the cards to put that whole Kiss puzzle together. I was borrowing Ace Frehley albums and bringing them home. I used to draw pictures of them, like with their faces painted and stuff. So I was into Kiss first.
Were you the only black kid in school into Kiss, Haz?
Well, at the time, I was one of the only black kids at my school. But then I got transferred, like in the 4th grade, I went to a school that was had more black kids, and my high school was like more black than white. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just into music, like all through the 80s. I listened to pop. I liked Van Halen, anything from Cyndi Lauper to Billy Joel. I listened to all that shit, you know what I'm saying? Plus what my father had in the house, you know what I'm saying? All of the soul stuff. We had Chicago albums. I recall, though, all of those vinyl records that I kind of let get away from me. So that's one of my biggest regrets now that my father has passed away, rest in peace, is that I didn't take care of his record collection, because he had everything. He had everything. Johnny Guitar Watson. My mother used to listen to like Millie Jackson, blues, where the ladies was talking nasty, Denise LaSalle. So I listened to like everything, you know what I'm saying? And then when hip hop hit, I just fell right on in. So I've been around and doing hip hop since it came out. As a DJ, I was, trying to pattern myself and mix and scratch like Jazzy Jeff. And, you know, I came up watching, you know, Run DMC and all of that, you know. So when my generation's music came in and it was hip hop, I've been with that since the beginning. So it was just easy.
I kind of took an opposite journey myself to you with regards to music. When I was in your equivalent of high school, I was probably the only kid in school listening to NWA and Ice-T. And I kind of went backwards with that. Instead of getting the historical music first, I got the new stuff first, and then I got into Ice-T, NWA, stuff like that initially, and then started working backwards to like some Marvin Gaye and stuff that I got into, and then work backwards again. So where where my musical taste now line now are like Son House and, you know, Blind Willie Maxwell, Lead Belly, stuff like that, and you can see the direct origins of all that music the whole way up through history. It's absolutely fantastic.
Oh man, I came up right with it, man, because like I said, I'm not young, so I lived through Michael Jackson, and, you know, I was listening to ZZ Top. You know, I was there when MTV first started playing videos. You know, I remember the video shows before MTV. It was like Friday Night Videos. That was the only video show that was on TV showing all of those videos from the 80s. That's how I got to know a lot of the pop artists like the Police and you know, and we were listening to all that stuff like Phil Collins and all of that stuff was good to me. So, but you know, we listened, like I said, in our household we had a lot of R&B and soul music. So everything, I've been influenced by everything.
That really comes through then in your content. So I suppose how you came onto my radar really has been on Twitter with your post game content that you've been doing this year. Is that something that you've done before, or is it this something that you only got into this year? You've just started producing those songs this year?
Well, I know this was my first year doing it for the Browns, but when I started radio in Baltimore, and during the time that the Baltimore Ravens were doing their thing, we had a local morning show, and they used to do a similar thing, and they called themselves the Breakfast Flakes, and they used to do songs about the Ravens, you know what I mean? And they used to let me get involved sometimes, like, and the Ravens like actually won the Super Bowl that year, so they had to make songs all the way up through until the Super Bowl. And so, and that was like back in 2000, you know. So, and I worked there, and I do a lot of production, and I you know, as I came up through hip hop, I did everything hip hop. I DJ, break dance, and started rapping, you know, way back in the day. And I used to be with a rap group, so I really pride myself on my ability to rap. But, you know, my rap career just didn't take off. So, but I still can rap. So I felt like, hey, they say the Browns gonna be good. I just decided to make a song every season, you know, bring that same thing that they were doing back then, and just incorporate, you know, my own skills and do it for the Browns. So I, you know, hopefully that they was going to carry on to the Super Bowl like the Ravens did back then, and I'd be able to make a Super Bowl song, but
didn't happen, unfortunately.
Not yet. Not
No.
yet. And I was able to make a Super Bowl song back then for the Ravens, and so
And
I don't even have a copy of that though. Somebody has a copy of that somewhere. I was on some songs about the Ravens. I admit it. I was working for the radio in Baltimore, and we did songs about the Ravens back then. But the Ravens fans are mad at me now. They didn't like that "Sorry Lamar Jackson" song when we kicked their ass. They didn't like that at all. They was coming at me seriously on all my social media pages where I had it posted. I was getting into it with Ravens fans. They know I bleed orange and brown deep down.
Yeah,
so
indeed. And your rap skills has hold up with the best of them, as your YouTube videos will suggest, with Snoop Dogg and yourself throwing it down there.
You saw the Snoop Dogg video. That's crazy. That's Snoop. And it was cool of him. And that was my first time ever meeting Snoop. That when he came through, and I had to, man, because I'm like, man, this guy freestyles. And I hadn't done that with an artist in a long time. I used to do that. I keep referring back to Baltimore, but I have a lot of collaborations with artists over the years of me working in radio, because I would get those that were willing to, because it was my job as, you know, because I do production for radio too. Outside of just being on the radio, I'm the production director. So I do a lot of audio editing, and I produce promos and, you know what I'm saying, drops and stuff, and intros for people's shows. And I've used my rap skills over, you know, for that type of stuff for a long time. And I would get artists that would come in that would be willing to, I would have a beat ready. After I would get them to do the drops, you know, they'd come through and be like, it'd be my job to record them saying, hey, this is LL Cool J whenever I'm in such and such. I'm rocking with 93.1 WZAK, you know, those type of drops. So it was my duty to get those type of drops from the artist. So that would put me in the room with the artist. And then I would ask them if they'd be willing to do something. But I have some good stuff from people like Wyclef, and Jill Scott did one with me, Common. I have a LL Cool J one. I have Chingy, you know what I mean? Some people back that were willing to do it back then. You know, the artists don't come through the radio station as much as they used to in the past, you know what I'm saying? Especially for, you know, urban AC stations. So, but I mean, you know, I've had some fun times, but I pride myself on being able to rap with the best of them. So I appreciate you recognizing the skills.
No problem.
I appreciate you.
Let me just ask, before we wrap up, plans for next season, media-wise or otherwise?
We gonna do it again. You know, I was glad, and I really just appreciate the support that I got from Browns fans all over. It is exactly, I was hoping, because I know about Browns backers. I have this app on my phone where I can find Browns backers wherever I go. I have an app so I can find them. So wherever you at, if I'm in your city or whatever, I want to come through and come hang out with you, because, you know, we just on this ride, and hopefully the Browns will be, you know, we'll have a winning song. We'll have a Super Bowl song or something. Or at least a playoff song. How about a playoff song?
Playoff song. I think you're the man for the job.
Baby steps. Baby steps. We'll get the playoff song going. And, you know, we'll wait and see. I ain't going to talk too soon. You know,
I'm sure you could.
We spoke too soon last season.
I'm sure you could have a song for each playoff game ready, like you do work on a short time scale.
Hell yeah, we're going to get it done. I have it done by the next day. I usually have it. See, the video don't come out till day later. It takes me, because I shoot the video myself and do all the editing. But the song was always done the next day, because we have a radio show here, and they played it on ESPN 850. They had been playing them. So I would get them the song the very next day, so they'd be able to play it on their morning show. But the video just took a little bit more work, you know, to get that done.
A lot of time and effort. But look, as we said with time and effort, I appreciate your time and effort very much, and we will have you on again for the announcing of the victory song in our first playoff game next season. And thanks very much for your time today, Haz. Much appreciated.
And I just want to say, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant, and all the prayers go out to his family. Tragic news. I was really hurt by that. I know you had fun talking, and I had a great interview, and I appreciate you. But rest in peace to Kobe Bryant.
Indeed.
And all prayers out to his family. Thanks again.
Sad news today.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for Haz for coming on today. Really enjoyed having him on the show. Great guy to talk to. And I said you can catch Haz on Cleveland Radio 1 with his throwback hip hop show on there, and keep an eye out from in the coming weeks and months. You can get him at Hey Haz on Twitter. You can get all his videos and all his content. Thanks very much for listening today. Please pass on the pod to your friends by retweeting, and if you can rate and review, that would really help us out. Follow us on Twitter, myself at JohnCahill_IRL, and me at 2 Green Browns. And until next time, go Browns.